A decades-old conflict has broken out into violence between Armenia and Azerbaijan, driving thousands from their homes. Residents living in the disputed Nagorno-Karabakh territory picked through the rubble of their destroyed homes there. As you can see, the region has been subjected to repeated artillery attacks. The conflict is having ripple effects here in Canada, where the federal government has suspended export permits for military equipment to Turkey. That follows allegations that Turkish-made drones with Canadian technology are being used in the conflict against the Armenians. Now, we requested an interview with Armenia's ambassador to Canada, but their office declined our request. So we have reached, to dig into all of this, Shahan Marakian. He's co-president of the Armenian National Committee of Canada, and he's in Toronto. Hi, Mr. Marakian. Good to see you. Thank you very much for making time.
You're welcome, Vashi.
As you know, sir, we spoke last evening with the Turkish ambassador to Canada. He said that he could neither confirm or deny that Turkish-made drones with Canadian technology are being used in this conflict. From your understanding of the situation, is there evidence or what evidence might there be to support the claim that those drones are indeed being used in the conflict?
Well, I think the best evidence for that is that the producer of the drones, Baykar, the Turkish company, had advertised that basically these drones were now being used in the conflict. And so the drone itself carries the target acquisition system that's manufactured by L3 Harris Westcam. So I think it's pretty clear. The other evidence that we see is that at an early date, the Azerbaijani Ministry of Defense was posting videos showing their as they call it, accomplishments in destroying targets. And the videos were taken using the target acquisition system on a drone. And obviously the augmented reality graphical overlay was showing up on those videos. And that graphical overlay was compared by Project Plowshares, a Canadian non-governmental organization engaged in efforts to prevent weapons proliferation, to the graphical overlays that L3 Harris Westcam used in an advertising or promotion of its technology, and they're identical, they match up. And so a number of sources, including Canadian reporters, have used that evidence to put forth a very plausible case, a credible case, for saying that these drones equipped with the target acquisition gear provided by our Ontario company, L3 Harris Westcam, are being used in the conflict by Azerbaijan against Armenian targets.
So the Canadian government, as a result, has suspended export permits of that type of equipment, and they're reviewing kind of the whole system right now. Is that something that you wanted to see, and do you think it goes far enough from your perspective?
Well, I mean, as a preliminary step, certainly it goes far enough. Nobody is saying that, my evidence or the evidence presented by Project Plowshares or independent third parties on its own should be sufficient for Canada to do anything. And so we recognize that there's obviously a process out there where Canada will use its own intelligence and its own sources to verify the information. But the law does allow for the foreign minister to suspend the export permits that were granted back in May during that period of investigation. And so I think that is a good preliminary step. We would encourage that the investigation actually be concluded, as opposed to just sort of, now sweeping it under the rug. So we would wait for the results of that investigation. We hope they're made public. In fact, we would encourage the Foreign Affairs Minister and Global Affairs Canada to make the investigation public, the results of it. And on that basis, we think that the export permits should be permanently withdrawn. And that the moratorium on arms shipments that was to Turkey that was placed on in October of 2019 be extended.
It would likely have to await, my guess is, the outcome of that investigation. And in the past, we have seen, and it's not a perfect parallel, but where Saudi Arabia is concerned, the review of exports there took a very long time. The investigation took a while, too. It's not the easiest thing to, especially during a conflict, I should say, to be able to ascertain, one way or the other.
Yeah, I know, and I agree with that. I don't know how much time we have. I mean, time is certainly a luxury in this case, as opposed to a necessity. Of course, with the suspension of the export permits and prevention of further shipments, including obviously services, software, training, that sort of repairs. There is some good has come out of it, but obviously, we would hope that the investigation will conclude sooner rather than later. So if there's a way to expedite the process, we would encourage it.
Traditionally, it's my understanding this conflict has been around for a long time. It's obviously been heightened over the last number of days. Traditionally, again, it's my understanding that the United States, for example, has played a role in making sure that it doesn't escalate or the way that we have seen. And what we have seen this time is that the United States has really not heavily involved itself in this at all. From your perspective, if there is to be peace, if this is to be worked out, where do what world actors, or is there a world body, or is there some sort of path to that you see? If the United States is absent from that, I should say.
Oh, interesting. So I think obviously, Russia has a role to play. Certainly the European Union, France, the OSCE has been involved in the situation through the Minsk group for years, which includes the United States as one of the permanent co-chairs. Obviously, the parties themselves have to come to the table, which includes the people of Nagorno-Karabakh, as we call it, Artsakh, would have to be involved as well. And then, Canada has a role to play as a middle power, a great negotiator, someone who has real credibility on the world stage. And hopefully we can bring some of that credibility on the world stage and spend some of that capital that we've built up over the, past 70 years on somehow resolving this conflict as well. I think that's an important thing to consider. But I think, everybody whose heart is in the right place, who wants peace, should be at the table. And obviously the belligerents, which in this case are now we've got, 4 parties in the conflict. We've had Armenia, Artsakh, and Azerbaijan in the conflict for a long time. And now Turkey has decided to insert itself as well, not in a good way.
I guess the reason I ask about, the United States or some other actor is because there seems to be a lot of hesitancy on all parties right now to pursue a ceasefire or to pursue that peaceful resolution, at least at this moment. And I'm wondering if you think it will take somebody from the outside.
Well, I mean, this is you're very much asking me, sort of a question that I don't know the answer to right now. In the sense that, these are quite complex diplomatic issues that are going on. For me,
sure isn't simple, yeah.
No. I mean, and I'm not. My expertise is only as much as I know about what Canada's role is in the conflict and what the two like 4 players are bringing to the table right now. Obviously Russia has a lot of influence in the area. It is, it's near abroad, as they would call it. So obviously it will play a role. France has traditionally played a very strong role through the OSCE, through NATO, through other multilateral organizations in this conflict. So will it require an outside power? I don't know. I mean, at some level, all of these things depend on the facts on the ground, who's winning, who's losing, where the line of contact lies, and then obviously on domestic politics. Certainly, and I think when I say domestic politics, I don't mean Armenian domestic politics. For Armenia, this is a matter of survival, so I'm not sure that there's any benefit to be gained by anybody to pursue any sort of belligerent policy in this case. But in respect of Azerbaijan and its domestic politics and Turkey and its domestic politics, right? Does President Aliyev of Azerbaijan need to bolster his standing amongst his own people by, launching a war during a global pandemic? Does President Erdogan of Turkey need to show the world that he's, a very important person? I think these are important things that will all play into it. And at some point, people may come to the table. It may take, an enormous loss of life, both military and civilian, on every side. Or the world can intervene. And hopefully, world intervention will come sooner rather than later, and hopefully people will listen. But whether it will absolutely requires an outside power,
it's hard to tell. I know.
Yeah, exactly.
It's hard. Okay, I'll leave it there. Thank you so much, Mr. Marakian. I appreciate your time this evening.
Oh, thank you, Vashi. Thank you for having me on.
Marakian is co-president of the Armenian National Committee of Canada. Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.